Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The Rangers defeat the San Jose Sharks 3-2, but the big concern is the status of Filip Chytil, who leaves the game with what is likely a potential concussion in a friendly fire situation with Keandre Miller in the second period. It was a 1-1 game, a little more than halfway through regulation. An innocent play in the offensive zone where Chytil was going for the puck, and Keandre Miller was standing there along the left boards, and Chytil runs into him and goes down and was definitely woozy to get up. He would go to the locker room, but he would return. By the end of the second period, he did come back. He must have played at least one shift, maybe two max, but then he was not back for the third period, and that's a definite concern with his history. It's the littlest of things that can set it off, and that's exactly what it was here. So with an upcoming Western road trip, it'll be very telling whether he is on this flight or not going to Seattle. And if I had to guess, I would say probably not. Just even if it's an abundance of caution, it's not great, obviously, knowing what he's been through. And look, you hope that it's nothing long term, but with him, who knows? So Rangers, they played okay in this game. Really, it was a second period barrage, if you will, with 3 goals, one by Mika Zibanejad, which was much needed. The much maligned Zibanejad after he's really, really struggled. And you hope that he somehow has hit rock bottom in terms of recency. I still think that, unfortunately, he's a player that is on the decline, but hopefully one that isn't completely downhill. But Zibanejad, Jimmy Vesey, and Vincent Trocheck score goals in the second period. So Rangers in the first period, not great in terms of offensive chances. They just seemed a bit disconnected and disjointed. Honestly, for most of the game, it felt that way. Rangers really, it wasn't a spectacular performance by them, but they were able to get the job done. Second period was better, and the goals ensued. In the third period, they played pretty well in the third. I didn't love how they played with the goalie pulled. That was another story, and so things got a little bit interesting. San Jose cut it to 1, the deficit, but the Rangers were able to hang on for the 3-2 win. It was the return of Barclay Goodrow, and he got a nice hand from the crowd. And Goodrow had a lot of scoring chances. He had a really good one. I think it was a shorthanded chance, potentially, against Shesterkin on a breakaway. I think he shot it wide, but he had a lot of other opportunities. He was definitely noticeable. I think it helped for him. He played on the Sharks' first line with Macklin Celebrini, the rookie, and Tyler Toffoli. So that certainly helped. But yeah, I felt as if he maybe was going to score. I know when he was on the Rangers, in his first game back in Tampa, he had a great game. I think it was a New Year's Eve game, 2021 going into 2022. But yeah, for Barclay Goodrow, good to see him get some love from the fans. And, I know that he was upset about his departure from the Rangers. But look, from the Rangers side of things, it made a lot of sense. With his contract being what it was, with 3 more years, it's the cruel part of the business, but it's exactly what the Rangers needed to do. So there was that. Alex Wennberg also, most notably for Wennberg, that game win, the overtime winning goal in Game 3 against the Florida Panthers in the Eastern Conference Final. Without that, there really wouldn't have been a very memorable Wennberg moment, but he did have that. That was actually the Rangers' last win of the playoffs. So Wennberg as well makes his return, with not as much fanfare, obviously, as Goodrow. But in other Ranger roster news, in what makes sense, is they send down Victor Mancini. So he had been a healthy scratch now for what it had been 3 or 4 games straight. And Chad Ruedel is called up. And Ruedel has the 7th defense, so it makes a lot more sense. Again, the unfortunate thing for me is it would have been nice if there was any possibility of one of the mainstays, a.k.a. Lindgren, Miller, Trouba, one of those 3, if there was any world where they could have maybe been healthy scratch. Look, we know that wasn't going to happen, and knowing that, it made sense to send Mancini down and let him get regular playing time. So I think the next time we would see him would be if there's an injury to the top 6 defensemen. He would be the first one up. Until then, barring Zach Jones struggling. And I think Zach Jones has done a really good job. Barring that, and even then, I still tend to think that Mancini is going to be in hard for a while. But if nothing else, definitely encouraging to see what he could bring to the table, because you can say with some confidence that next season the defense will look a bit different. Will it be an overhaul? Not necessarily. But I think one of Lindgren and or Truba, won't be back next season. So that could open up a spot for Mancini. Um, as far as the Heedle potential injury goes, what happens there is figure Brodzinski is going to be the one that slots in. And honestly, there's a couple of different directions they could go with it. It's disheartening, but I think what makes most sense is just having him replace Heedle on that line with Cooley and Kako. And I think that's what they'll do. And the reason for that is that fourth line has just been really very solid. And I think there's no reason to mess with that. And quite honestly, Carrick, because that's really who it would be. Carrick would be the one that would go up. I know that Edstrom does have center experience, but I don't think they would go there. I don't think they feel comfortable doing that. And Carrick as well. So I think Brodzinski, who we did see last year when Heedle was out, before they acquired Wenberg, it was Brodzinski that was mainly that third line center. And I'm trying to remember the specific line combination. It actually it may have actually been Cooley, Brodzinski, Kako. It was at least some form of that. I should remember this. But it was definitely some variation of that. And quite frankly, I'm almost certain it was Kako on the right. And I think there's a chance it may have been Cooley. But either way, that's probably what you're going to see. And then they would call up, some depth forward. It would not be a young player that gets called up. It would likely be a forward, like I said, in the way of a Jake Decision. Again, not someone that I want to see on the team, but that's just the way it goes. It makes sense to have veteran types, not young players, as healthy scratches. So again, hopefully somehow Heedle will be fine. And if he can somehow make that trip to Seattle, that's a great sign. Just doing that alone. But I think they're going to err on the side of caution. And I think he's going to be out at least for a little bit. Hopefully nothing too, too long term. So we'll see. But Sharks, Rangers, like I said, San Jose, they've been playing better lately as far as results go. Look, roster-wise, they're one of the worst teams in the league. And if the Rangers had lost this game, that would have been pretty embarrassing. And really, they didn't come out great. San Jose was the one that really kind of took it to the Rangers. I was very unimpressed with the Rangers' start to the game. They kind of settled in a little bit to the point where they weren't allowing big-time chances. I should also mention that Igor Shesterkin was in net for the Rangers against Mackenzie Blackwood. The former Devil was in net for the Sharks. But Shesterkin actually very underratedly had a very nice night. He makes 25 saves on 27 shots. It's too bad he ends up giving up that goal late. So really for most of the night, it was one goal. And it was a really fluky goal for San Jose. So I thought Igor, I'm not going to talk about him much of this episode, but it should be known that along the way, he made some pretty big saves at key moments. So this game could have went in the other direction. So first period, San Jose is the one that gets on the board first, and it's Timothy Liljegren who gets it. It's his first goal of the season. I believe his first goal is a Shark, assisted by Cunnin and Sturm at 2:51. Just a very innocent shot from the point. I think it deflects off of the stick of Jimmy Vesey and just skies in over Shesterkin. He had no idea where the puck was. The thing that upsets me is that it goes against the stats of some, Jones and Schneider. It's like a minus for them when they didn't deserve it. But I mean, again, that's a nothing sort of thing. And as well, that fourth line is on. And they also had some decent plus minus numbers. Nothing crazy, actually, but it's really more Jones and Schneider that have very impressive numbers in that regard. So that goes against their ledger, unfortunately, but it's a goal for San Jose, makes it 1-0. And to be fair to San Jose, the first 5 minutes and more, I thought that they were definitely the better team. So it wasn't pretty, but in some ways, maybe they deserved to score a goal. So I made it 1-0 there. There were no penalties taken in the first period for either team. And the Sharks outshot the Rangers 9-7 in that first period. So again, just nothing felt crisp. Passes and getting out of the zone, it wasn't great. It wasn't a bad period, but it just not really what you're looking for. Second period comes around, and it took a while for the Rangers to get going. And there were a bit of penalties in this second period. At 2:56, Zach Jones is called for holding Luke Cunnan, but then Barclay Goodrow, 4 seconds into that sharp power play, interferes with Jacob Trouba. And so it's 4-on-4. But then before that's over, with 4:29 at 4:29 in the second, Braden Schneider holds Ty Dellandrea. So it was actually 4-on-3 for the Sharks for a little bit of time, about maybe 30 seconds or so. Rangers kill it off. No goals are scored in that sequence. And then at 11:41, it's Mika Zibanejad scoring his third goal of the season from Fox and Riley Smith. So a nice play by Riley Smith. Nice little pass. And again, he does the little things. I do like what I've seen from Riley Smith, someone that, is probably not talked about as much as others. And I think that he, despite the fact that he's been kind of saddled with Zibanejad and Kreider, I think he's made the most of it. But it's Adam Fox who takes a shot, and not a great rebound by Blackwood, but good job by Mika Zibanejad to be in position to just bury it. And that was good to see. It's just, we have not seen something as simple as that, just him absolutely, no doubt about it, right where it needs to be and cleaning up the garbage. And so that makes it 1-1. And it's big that Zibanejad scored it. Look, this was a far from a perfect game from him. Like, there were definitely things that were not up to par, but getting that goal, he seemed a bit more engaged in certain elements of the game. And I know it's against San Jose, believe me, it's not as if he's worked his way out of it. It's still a thing. But, considering he was a major, major talking point, good for him to get that goal to tie it up at 1. Then soon thereafter is where you have that Chytil collision. And it actually led to a 3-on-1 for San Jose. Adam Fox did a nice job defending it, because that could have been bad. But yeah, just again, like a harmless thing where Chytil skates into Keandre Miller. And I know, I'm sure people are going to joke about, Keandre Miller, because he's not one that normally hits people, but he happened to be there. I mean, look, it wasn't intentional at all. He didn't even really, he just kind of stood there. And Chytil was the one that went into him. And he went down, and you could tell that Chytil was frustrated, because again, it's not just being dazed. Like, Chytil really, you can tell in his comments over time, it means a lot to him. He really wants to be able to have a healthy season. And I think he knows that he knew he wasn't quite right. It was a good sign that later he came back, but ultimately when the third period rolled around, he was not on the bench. And so that's where we are now with Chytil. But again, that Zibanejad goal got things going. And at 13:15, it's a goal for the fourth line. Jimmy Vesey scores his second goal of the season, assisted by Sam Carrick. And Carrick continues to really do a very nice, steady job on that fourth line. Not someone that's talked about a whole lot and has really fit in seamlessly. And he also kills penalties as well. I think that, I have no problem with what he's done. That fourth line with Edstrom, Carrick, and Vesey is not really such a defensive liability, and they are chipping in goals here and there. And so Vesey scores his second goal in 3 games. So that makes it 2-1 Rangers. It was a play where Carrick holds onto the puck, brings him into the zone, and it ends up being a loose puck situation where Vesey, I think he follows up on his own shot, and it's a backhand with some elevation past Mackenzie Blackwood to give the Rangers a 2-1 lead. Then at 16:21, it is Vincent Trocheck scoring his 4th goal of the season from Panarin and Lafreniere. So that's the thing that if I haven't mentioned it now, I want to mention it now. The forward lines being what they were in this game is what they should be. As much as I've talked about Zibanejad and Kreider, ideally maybe not being on the same line and being open to having them on separate lines, the way the other ones operate, you kind of need it to be Kreider, Zibanejad, Smith. Because Zibanejad, Panarin, and Lafreniere, it's not the same. Trocheck being on it, it makes a much positive difference offensively with the passing plays. They have this chemistry. And it was a play where Lafreniere gets into the zone. Panarin does a lot of the work. This was really an Artemi Panarin-related goal. Panarin just with some patience, some vision, a nice pass to Trocheck, and Trocheck with a nice deft sort of deflection is able to get it above Mackenzie Blackwood to make it 3-1. So again, regardless of the Chytil situation, this is what the line should be. Can you call it a bit boring is not the right word, but hey, these are lines that we're used to, especially at the start of the season and dating back to last year as well in some cases, but it just kind of is what it is. It is the best combination. I should also say defensively, they made a couple of tweaks. They kept Jones with Schneider, but now they have Miller with Fox and Linger with Trouba. Again, I don't like Linger with Trouba. I do like the idea of Miller with Fox. But with that, again, I go back to this, and I'm going to continue to harp on this. I want to see Jones with Trouba. I want to see how that combination works. I know that there's definitely a lot of risk to that, but I want Trouba to kind of stay back. I know, look, he's not great defensively, but I'd rather him have a role of stay back and let Zach Jones kind of roam around. I think that could be a combination that maybe meshes. I liked Miller with Schneider, but if you want to have Miller with Fox, let's at least see what Linger with Schneider can do. So you're getting somewhere. This was a step in the right direction. You could not have Linger and Fox, Miller, Trouba go on. I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to it at some point, but let's stay away from that. And so this is a step in the right direction. Although, again, lingering with Trouba definitely does concern me just a bit. So that Trocheck goal gives the Rangers a 3-1 lead. And to make things better, William Eklund hooks Lafreniere. And so it's a Ranger power play to start the third period. They wouldn't score on it. So it keeps San Jose in the game. But I thought that the Rangers, for the most part, played a pretty sound third period. Didn't make many mistakes. You would have liked for them to have put the game away. They don't. And what I didn't like is the Rangers play when the goalie was pulled. San Jose posed the goalie. Igor tried for an empty net goal. That is part of it too. See, it's fun as a fan, but things get a little bit out of whack because you can tell Igor when it's a 2-goal game, like he's craving for that goal. And I do think that there is kind of an effect on the whole team. I don't mind it. I hope he scores, but came kind of close, but was unsuccessful. And ultimately what happens is Mika Zibanejad takes a penalty at the 19-minute mark. So 1 minute to go in the game, Zibanejad trips Mikael Granlund. And so it leads to a 6-on-4 situation for the Sharks, and they score. So the former Devil, Fabian Zetterlund, scores his 7th goal of the season from Eklund and Toffoli at 19:33. So, hey, 1-goal game with 27 seconds to go. But the Rangers were able to lock it down. At the end, they had the combination of Zibanejad, Kreider, and Trocheck on, and I believe it was actually Miller and Fox after Lindgren and Trouba had been on for that penalty kill. So Rangers get the win, 3-2. So you couldn't lose it. It's nothing to write home about. It's not a win to pump your chest about, but it's one that you could not lose. So now the Rangers' record moves to 10-4-1, and now they will head out west to face the Seattle Kraken, which is a winnable game for sure. And then from there, they'll take on the Vancouver Canucks, who have a good record, but have been struggling lately. So that's another one that would appear winnable. Calgary Flames after that. And then the Edmonton Oilers to finish it off. And so that's going to be the toughest of the bunch. Now, they got off to a slow start as well, but that's a really talented roster. So I think kind of in some ways, not exactly on an incline, but I think that trip gets tougher as it moves along. But we'll see. Jonathan Quick, I would definitely expect to see him either against Seattle or Vancouver, would be my guess. I guess my hunch would be the Kraken, but you could really go, there's nothing obvious there. We'll see what they do. But the big news is Filip Chytil. Hopefully he has avoided what would be another concussion. It's definitely a scare. I think it's definitely one that the Ranger fans are going to want to monitor. We'll find out soon enough. And the fact that they have this road trip, it's going to tell us where things are. If he's on the trip, really good sign. If he's not, don't be surprised. And that would keep him at least 4 games and potentially longer. So we'll see what happens there. So Filip Chytil leaves the game with a potential concussion. It's termed an upper body injury, but a potential concussion. But the Rangers do beat the San Jose Sharks by a score of 3-2.